It is wonderful to see you. It is wonderful to see you here, and I already see some new faces. So hello to anyone I haven't had a chance to meet yet or work with yet. Also some familiar spaces from the spaces, as in Zoom rectangle, and familiar faces from the Animas training, the supervision school, and many other places. So if you don't know me, my name is Marta Abramska. I am a career and leadership coach. I'm also a coach trainer at Animas and a facilitator of reflective practice groups at the International Center for Coaching Supervision. I see that there are people still knocking on the Zoom door. So I have Kat here with us. So I'm hoping Kat can let everyone in, and whoever's joining, hello. So I have this immense pleasure of spending a bit of time with you thinking about the topic of uncertainty. And this is something that is so close to my heart, and something I've been thinking about like throughout my entire professional life, and probably even before. And no, I'm really thinking about the fact how we are living in such an uncertain time, aren't we? If we think about everything we have been through on this planet, and if you think about the uncertainties with Brexit, right, with the pandemic that we have been living with in the last few years. If we think about, what is happening with the invasion of Ukraine, if we think about the energy crisis right now, there are so many things that are happening that are constantly making it feel like the world is uncertain, that we don't know what the impact of things is going to be like. And we also what I'm finding is that the world feels more uncertain also because of how much availability of information there is, right? Like how much media is also looking to tap into that avoidance of uncertainty that we have. So I'm really hoping that we can expand on some of those themes today and really have a good discussion. I'm also thinking about the fact how uncertainty is such a big part of our lives, because we are increasingly choosing to reject maybe some of the stiff norms that are coming or have been coming from society, like those norms dictating how we live. What are some of those hand-me-down recipes that we are given in our life about what it means to have a successful life and be happy, right? If you think about, well, if my father is a shoemaker, then surely I'm encouraged to take that role and build my life around that as well. But all of us here in the room, I'm guessing most of us have made some brave choices and have actually embraced uncertainty because of the work that you do. And this really makes me think of Sartre and the existentialists who said, like, especially Sartre, who says we are condemned to be free. We are making those choices all the time, and all those choices come with a lot of uncertainty. So why does this matter for us as coaches to be thinking about this? And I'm of course biased because I'm passionate about this topic, but I'm thinking, well, the awareness of the impact of uncertainty on our lives can really help us to grow, right? To learn, to grow, to really embrace that formation that Simon Western was talking about. But also we can create a container for our clients to be connecting with some of that and be going deeper, perhaps into their for our clients to be going deeper into their experience and therefore making brave choices too. It's such an important life skill, sadly, is not taught. So what I want to say before we start is this is not a presentation as such. I do have a bit of material to share with you, but more kind of reflection prompt than anything that maybe you don't know already. But I would love to invite reflection, and you will be spending some time in breakout rooms as well, where there'll be a few of those throughout this session. And I really invite your thoughts, your experience. I'll be inviting you to connect into your experience and hoping you'll take something new from this. Giorgio, I see your hand. Is there anything you want to jump in on?
I keep coming into this this class. I'm supposed to be in the other one, but it doesn't let me go into the other one. I'm a bit confused about what to do.
Oh, Giorgio, I'm so sorry. So it looks like we have people here who are supposed to be in a different room. So I know we have Kat here. So Kat, if you could help and direct people to the right link.
Sure, I just sent the link if you're trying to join Bronwyn to the chat. So if you could just follow that link and you will be directed to Bronwyn. Apologies about this, everyone.
Okay.
Have fun in the other room, guys, whoever's leaving. Okay. All right, I'm just giving a moment to anyone, to whoever is leaving, feel free to leave. And if you're staying, I'm happy that you're staying. I'm also now having this moment of, whew, is everyone going to go to the other room? Right. So going back to the topic of thank you for those of you saying in the chat that you're staying. Fantastic. Now, I have a lifelong relationship with uncertainty because in my previous career, before I decided to change my life upside down and become a coach, I was working with something called catastrophe risk management, which basically means helping companies understand the risk of really big hurricanes or earthquakes or events that we haven't had yet before, but we are worried they might happen because of what we know about meteorology and seismology and so on. And uncertainty has been such a big part of that work already there, because if I were to summarize like years of that career, I'm thinking, well, we can never predict the future. We can never know what a big category 5 hurricane is going to be. And however much we try, however many resources we throw on the topic, things will always be uncertain. It's like gravity. It's like this facticity of life, that things are always going to be uncertain. And what is important about that, though, is really, rather than buying into false certainties, really trying to understand, what are the parameters of that uncertainty? What is the impact of that uncertainty on our life, right? And maybe managing its impact. And this is so important for us and in our professional work and our personal life as well. So if I think about my coaching work and how I see this in my work right now, I mean, I see uncertainty everywhere. If I think about my clients maybe stepping up into higher a kind of leadership role and really going on the journey, that uncertainty of stepping into the unknown and trying to control that uncertainty can be really strong force. Maybe it's about over preparing or relying on relationships rather than really embracing the motto of, well, what got you here won't get you there. How do we control that uncertainty? But it's the same with my career coaching clients. Maybe this is something that will resonate for you as well, given your work, is how our clients, sometimes they really want to make sure that they prepare for the next step. They kind of almost like figure the puzzle out before they take action. It's also like, how do our clients want to avoid that uncertainty? I can really feel that, and also that overwhelming feeling of uncertainty when they actually embark on the journey. What does it feel like? And I'll be inviting you today to tune into that for yourselves as well. And also, if I think about coaches I work with in supervision and in training, very often, when we start something new and we want to be doing a good job, how can we be holding on to models or maybe questions that we hear in a way to control that uncertainty a bit, right? And if you think about, even the ICF tells us, in competency 5.5, is that as coaches, we need to be comfortable working in the space of not knowing. That space of not knowing, which can really create that container for our clients to be doing the work that is there to be done, but yet how sometimes it might be a bit difficult for us to let that uncertainty be. So what I'd love to show you kind of what's in store for today, and really go back. Let me just go back to my slides, and I will share a little bit of material, but not too much, hopefully. See, just sharing my slide, show you the agenda for today. Okay. So what I'm hoping we can achieve in our session here today is, first of all, reflect on your own relationship with uncertainty, right? Like, what is this relationship like? What is your uncertainty tolerance like? And what are some of the behaviors we might all resort to when we want to avoid that uncertainty? But also the second one is explore some of the coaching approaches and tools that can support our clients. Again, keeping it very much in mind that our client's story is very much, a series of formative moments like Simon was talking about. But how can we perhaps shed some new light on what is going on for them? How can we help with that uncertainty? And lastly, I'm really hoping that you will leave this session inspired to really see uncertainty a bit differently, see it as maybe a force of growth, maybe force of creation. Because I don't know about you, but if I think about some of the most uncertain moments in my own life, there were also moments where a lot of transformation, change, growth, learning, rich experiences often followed. Okay, so before we go any further, I'd really like to ask you, and maybe you can put this in the chat or jump in to say, when you think of the word uncertainty, what comes to mind for you? What are the kind of associations you have with the word uncertainty? You can, let me just open the chat and see. Loving this. All right, so we have a great mix. So there is uncertainty, fear, opportunity, change, fear, indecision. Yes, it can really be linked to that doubt, excitement, fear, not knowing. Absolutely, that not knowing of what's going to happen next, discomfort, fear and opportunity, excitement. Can really see both sides of the coin in there. And I think this is fantastic because this already shows that, our human experience really has that paradox in there, right? Like this is both about and paradox. I see Ken on my screen here thinking about his session later about paradox, that we are embracing both of those sides. It can be such a stressful and anxiety provoking feeling, but at the same time also comes with possibility. So I'd love to take a moment to, before we go any further, I want to say I've prepared a resource for you, because as I was thinking about this presentation and about this workshop, there are so many things I wanted to include, but it just wasn't possible. So if you would like to delve into it further, you're welcome to download it and look into it in your own time. It's not needed to go through this workshop. I'll be framing all sorts of things as we speak, but if you wish to do that, you're very welcome to, and this is the link to be doing that. Okay, so take a moment to reflect maybe on this question. Just everyone in their own time for now, reflect on an uncertain time in your own life. Okay, and I can give you an example from mine, which comes to me immediately when I think about uncertainty, which was, kind of sharing a bit of a personal window into some of my own formation. Is the moment where I felt uncertainty really, when I felt like enthralled to that uncertainty, was when after a long, slightly turbulent period in my life, it became really clear to me that I was going to raise my child as a single parent. Okay, I knew that this was my path going forward, and I remember just being really overpowered by fear. So if I think about that moment in my life, which was now over 10 years ago, and actually it's been a wonderful journey from the perspective of today, when I think of that moment, I was really thinking, and I can see that room, that bed I was lying on when I was having those thoughts, and really feeling the pressure in my head, the kind of the heart racing, and maybe the knot in my stomach as I thought about, well, is this going to be all right? How is this going to pan out with my life? And I was also noticing lots of impulses, as in, I want this uncertainty to go away. Like, this is too uncomfortable. I really want to find the answer. And I remember myself, and I'm sharing this with a hint of embarrassment. Like, I went to Google. It's like, and I was researching for papers on, well, how well do kids who are raised by single parents do in life? So I'm thinking about this now and rationally thinking, like, how ridiculous, right? How can I look for an answer to this question on Google? But I guess this really gives me some sympathy to our human experience of wanting that uncertainty to go away. So maybe take a moment to think about a moment like this for yourself. What was happening for you in that moment? What feelings were emerging? Maybe what it felt like in your body. And also, what impulses did you notice? Have a think about, what does it make you do or not do that feeling of uncertainty? So this is just a moment for you to connect with a bit of a case study for this workshop, And we will be building on that as we take different lenses and explore the topic of uncertainty, first for ourselves, but then also for our clients. Okay. So just giving you a very quick moment to think about that. Maybe, you know, some uncertainty you've experienced when you started a new chapter in your life, right? Or maybe you were going all in on a relationship. Maybe you left your stable job. Maybe, you know, waiting for a doctor to call you back with news on your health. I'm really thinking about even moments right now as I'm talking to my friends about what will that energy bill look like this winter, right? Like that uncertainty of all those different things, from big events to small events in our life, and what impact does it have? Okay. Okay. So I wanted to throw in a couple of insights from the world of neuroscience and invite us to have a bit of compassion for what I sometimes laugh about with my clients is that the standard equipment we come with as humans, and what is it that makes us want to avoid that uncertainty at all costs? Well, if you think about our brain, you know, our brain's main job is to keep us alive. And that means that when we don't know what's going to happen, when we're facing that uncertainty, often this comes from our wiring, our human wiring that comes from the past, when we were going into maybe new patches of the wood and we might be worried that there might be a predator lurking in the bushes. So that feeling of not knowing can really be quite an important force that makes us avoid uncertainty at all costs. And a piece of research that I find has changed the way I think about this forever was an experiment that has been carried out at the University College in London, where volunteers were playing a computer game. This is why I have a snake on this slide here. They were playing a computer game where they turned over rocks. And some of those rocks had a snake underneath. And the game came with a twist, because when they found a snake under a rock, what also happened is that they received a mildly painful electric shock to the hand as well. Okay, so this is I was thinking, not a very fun study to be part of, but over time, what participants learned is they learned that some rocks were more likely to have a snake underneath than others, and the computer measured their stress response by analyzing how much they sweated and how big their pupils were, but also measured uncertainty through their guesses. And this is, to me, an absolute revelation in the study, is that what they found is that uncertainty can actually cause more pain than more stress than inevitable pain. So basically what it meant is that people preferred, or maybe they were less stressed when they knew that they would receive the electric shock, to when they were actually having a 50-50 chance whether there would be a snake in there or not. So basically 50% chance of receiving the shock were the most stressful situations, while 0% and 100% chances were the least stressful. I find this really fascinating. I find this really bringing home the point of, we just don't like that point of not knowing. And if you think about the ability that we might have to embrace that uncertainty, this is almost like a secret sauce of living, I find sometimes. And I was listening to a podcast recently with Stephen Bartlett, who is the host of the CEO, the CEO podcast. And he said something that really struck a chord with me, which was, we choose the certain misery of our current situation over the uncertainty we will inevitably have to encounter as we go in a search of our happier place. Where you are is certain, and whether it's unhappy or not, there is certainty there. Getting to a place where you're comfortable with uncertainty, the precipice you have to travel through to get to that place, I believe will be the single biggest predictor of your success professionally and personally. Do not overstay your welcome in situations that are not serving you. Okay? This really struck a chord with me, and I was hoping to bring this to our conversation today and ask you, to have a reflection on, well, what are some of the situations where you might be overstaying your welcome that are not serving you? Okay. But now, not all uncertainty is bad. Not uncertainty is bad, right? Because if you think about, for example, a really boring movie, you know how this movie is going to end. That's not very enticing, is it? So what else might be going on for us when it comes to that? And one thing I like to think about is another part of our human equipment, our human standard equipment, which is our natural impulse to explore, to learn, and to look for meaningful experiences, which has also been crucial to our evolution, because we want to be exploring, because we want to be surviving by looking for new resources. And some of those resources might be far, right? So there is also this part of us that wants us to be exploring. And I really love Jaak Panksepp's theory of the seeking system, which is also part of our brain that makes us explore, look for meaning, that makes us play. But also what Jaak Panksepp said was that fear is like a kryptonite to the seeking system. We shut down when we have that fear. So with that in mind, this kind of begs the question of like, well, what is the right amount of uncertainty? And what is the quality of that uncertainty? So this is an exploration I'd love to invite you to in the next part. And if you think about, this this thermometer, like this, imagine this is your very subjective measurement of the amount of uncertainty that is serving you in your own life. If you think about, that cold area where things are just boring, too predictable, perhaps they're just too stable for you to be thriving. And if you think about that red zone feeling unsafe, perhaps overwhelming, think about then the yellow bit in the middle, the bit that I'm marking here with a question mark. What does that look like for you? And this will be different for all of us. This will be absolutely different for everyone. I was in fact having a very heated debate with a friend of mine over breakfast yesterday about, well, is it nature or is this nurture? Like, what is driving our tolerance for uncertainty? And this is going to be so different for each and every one of us. So have a think about that. And there are some questions to help you do that as well. Just open them up. So what does the kind of right amount of uncertainty feel like for you? What is the quality of that uncertainty? And what takes us from the yellow zone to the red zone as well? And lastly, last question, what might we do to avoid that uncertainty? What might we be doing? What might be the impulses that we notice? Okay, so I'll just stop sharing my screen for a moment. I am going to paste those questions in the chat so you have them with you as I create those breakout rooms. Okay. Okay, so hopefully when you go to your breakout rooms, you're going to be able to see them. So let's see, how many rooms do we need? Okay, so start thinking about this as you do. Okay. So I'm going to be creating rooms of 2 pairs of 3, okay, for, let me see, for maybe about 7 minutes, okay? So 7 minutes for you to have a conversation about those questions and just be curious, be mindful of everyone having a very different journey with this as well. Okay, setting the timer for 7 minutes and a 30-second countdown, opening the rooms up. Enjoy. Okay, welcome back. We still have a few seconds for everyone to come back from those rooms, and then we'll be starting. Did you have a good conversation? Yeah, perfect. Great to hear. And I want to like basically clone myself and really listen to all the conversations. in all those rooms that we had so many of. All right, 3, 2, 1, and everyone will be back. Okay. All right, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. I'm hoping you've managed to connect to your experience a bit and in a phenomenological way, kind of connect with what's going on for you when things are uncertain. Now, there is a little bracket I'd like to make here, and there's more on that in the resource that I prepared for you. But you know what I'm thinking about, that last question of, well, what does it make us do? What might be some of the impulses we might notice? You know, this really makes me think about avoidance of uncertainty and the cost of that avoidance. And if you think about the cost of our quest towards certainty, there are many things we might end up looking for. And I'm really thinking about the systemic lens, you know, and Simon has also invited us to think about, well, what are those bigger systems that we are part of? And one of the dangers I find with looking to escape uncertainty is the allure of simple stories, right? And those simple stories we might want to buy into in our life. And if you think about what Jung said about this, he said that fanaticism is a sign of repressed doubt. So there's something about when we are feeling absolutely certain about something, and we can all get fanatical, right, so to speak, about things in our lives. It's sometimes a good idea to just get curious about that. You know, what is it that I don't want to know about? Because if I must have doubt if I'm feeling that certain. And, you know, if I think about some of the forces we see in the world, some of the polarization, right? If you think about someone being fanatically pro-vaccine or against the vaccine, or if I think about what is happening in, you know, with governments and you know, we all live in different places, there are important lessons to that about that embracing of uncertainty that I think are important, because otherwise there might be forces trying to exploit our seeking of certainty. And I live in a country, so at the moment I live in Poland, where we have some authoritarian forces in our government, unfortunately, if you allow me to be a tiny bit political in this moment. And I notice how those simple stories can get people behind, especially when there is fear, when there are unknowns lurking. So it's almost like what is the responsibility that we also have to be tuning in to where might we be looking for certainties? We might be looking for simple stories. But that is an aside. I could spend a long time talking about this, but we don't have that much time today. But I wanted to shift this into talking about our coaching now, right? Because we are here, we are all coaches, and thinking about how do we work with our clients in this way. So if we, almost like I'll be inviting you to take the lessons that you have just had in those conversations and when you were reflecting, and applying this to your coaching. So if you think about your own growth, right, and your own change and your own journey, it's very often that those spurts of growth or new possibilities came from really uncertain times. And I really look at what you said here in the chat in terms of some of those transitions and discovery and chaos, challenge, but also possibility that come from that uncertainty, like that uncertainty being such a rich fuel for change. So with that, the question to all of us, I think, is, well, what kind of coaching is needed to support that change? What kind of thinking partner do we need to be for our clients so that we are creating meaning together? We are a companion on their own journey of formation, rather than perhaps how we sometimes like to think about this in coaching, is rather than uncovering what's already within, how can we be creating or co-creating a path with our clients where they can find their own meaning, they can find their own answers, they can mine that uncertainty in a safe way. And this concept that I'd love to talk about briefly and really invite all of you now very shortly into co-creation on this, because I'm hoping we can have a good brainstorm about this together, is the concept of safe uncertainty versus unsafe uncertainty, which I have come across in the work of Barry Mason, who is a systems family therapist. So I've taken a liberty of creating a little drawing of that here. But really the idea here is that that uncertainty can be so overwhelming. And when it's overwhelming, it can really paralyze us, right? And it can really inhibit our creativity. If you think about this lady on the left-hand side, drowning in that unsafe uncertainty. And that some perceived certainty is important because it's helping us to move through our lives in a creative way. And it's almost like, again, that reptilian brain and that seeking system being in balance, right? Like, how can we support our clients so that they feel like they are in that place of safe uncertainty? And what Barry Mason talked about here is that position of safe uncertainty, which is about helping people to stop looking for quick fixes, embracing uncertainty, but kind of being in that safe way where as practitioners, we are alongside, or maybe even slightly behind, that's what he talked about, our clients in that exploration, where perhaps we are helping our clients to fall out of love with that idea that we need to have the entire map laid out in front of us before we can start a new chapter. So this is something that we can think about as coaches, because change, as supported by coaching, right, is also a creation. So how can we be working with someone in a way that helps them be creative, but also embracing uncertainty and doing so in a safe way? Okay. So what I am also thinking about often is how our clients might be coming to us in unsafe uncertainty, expecting safe certainty, right? Wanting those answers, wanting to be told, maybe wanting to be given tips, or maybe looking to be working with us as someone who has the answers. And there's a challenge for us coaches here as well, right? Like, how do we do that? How do we create that container and perhaps sell coaching, but without offering those false certainties? So this is what I'd love to invite you to think about now. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And again, I'm going to create some breakout rooms for you to have a think about, what does looking from safe uncertainty looks like? What does it trigger in you? No rights and wrongs here, just a way for us to be connecting on that question and just allowing for anything that comes up for you to be shared with others. And I'm sure this will trigger new thoughts. And I'm hoping when you come back, I'd love to invite a few voices into the room so we can do this as a co-creation. So I'm going to again create some breakout rooms. Let me see, maybe groups of, let's see. Okay, so allow me just to do a bit of maths here. Usually working with smaller groups, so there are quite a few numbers here going on. So I'm going to create rooms of 4 or 5 for about 10 minutes, okay? So I'm hoping that all of you will have a companion. If you don't, we're going to teleport you to a different room if we notice that you're by yourself. So I'm opening those rooms up for, let's see, for 10 minutes, okay? So an exploration for 10 minutes on that question. Okay. So opening the rooms up, enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. Loving how you taken to the last minute in many cases to, which for me is always a sign of a good conversation. I would absolutely love to invite a couple of voices in the room as to what came up for you in those conversations. What came up as ways of working with our client? What is trigger that is in that safe uncertainty? What did it trigger for you in your practice? I see a few hands up. Let me see. Let me bring in a couple of people, and then whoever doesn't get a chance to speak, and to all of you also, feel free to put some comment in the chat as well, and we'll be paying attention to them too. Sheila, what are your thoughts?
Hi. Yes. So we were talking about the role of growth mindset in this, because so I walked out of my job in May. And we were kind of along the lines of, oh, that's really brave. And I said there's a fine line between bravery and stupidity. And that, you know, if you're from a growth mindset, you'll say, well, you know, actually that's really brave. And if you're from a closed mindset, you might say, oh, that's really stupid. But then it's about your risk. In our group just now, we were talking about kind of risk aversion and what that looks like for different people. And I suppose that will show up differently for our clients.
Yeah, I love that, Sheila. It reminds me of my own story of quitting my corporate career as well. And absolutely how different this may be for different people, almost like allowing that space for them to connect with what might be going on for them in that moment. And love that growth mindset frame into that as well. It really makes me think of that reframing that I know some people were mentioning in the chat, I think at TIP as well. Taina, what did it bring up for you?
So I have a reflection on the connection between uncertainty and being comfortable with uncertainty and not being organized, or the other way. So yeah, I was just reflecting basically on that, because if you're an organized person and that just means that you like to have a tiny plan, does that make you basically more uncomfortable with uncertainty, because you basically always know what's coming up and what's in it for you? And then if you say, okay, I want to work on being comfortable with being uncertain, but I still don't want to be not organized. So, you know, it's just how do you bridge that?
Yeah, great point, Taina. And, you know, I'm thinking about something that I've come across recently, exploring this in the work of Nathan Furr and Susanna Harmon Furr. I'll refer to this in a moment, is uncertainty balancers. Like, what could be things in our life that we can use to balance that uncertainty? And if I were to reframe what you said into a positive connotation, is like, what is that function of being organized actually have that helps us maybe to handle uncertainty elsewhere, right? And what are the things in our life that can help with that? It's a great point. Yeah. Let's hear from Ricardo.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Today we had a nice, I had a nice reflection for myself. Is like, I think it's like our own, as coaches, our own relationship with uncertainty, right? Like Tom was mentioning, like we was like, for example, my bias is like nothing in life is certain. So you know what? So I bring that to coaching, and Tom was like, yeah, maybe you are working more on the side of like the relationship of the certainty that persons have with certainty rather with uncertainty. And I reflected a little bit, and it's like, if it was 5 years ago, if I was a coach, which I was not, my role would have been, I want a certain life, and I would bring to coach that, and I would try my clients to be as certain as possible. And nowadays my turning point is completely different. I'm not saying it's best or the better or worst, it's just different, and definitely it does affect how you relate with the client.
Yeah, thank you for that point, Ricardo. And almost like, what a great invitation to then invite ourselves to be checking in on our own relationship with uncertainty, because however impartial we may want to be, we bring those biases, those frames to our coaching. And what an important thing. Hattie, let's hear from you, and then I need to move us on. But if you don't get a chance to speak, please put your comments in the chat. I'd love to at least read them out loud quickly. Hattie.
We had a lovely conversation, lots of interesting points, but the one that I wanted to mention was just, we talked about in the face of uncertainty, which can often feel very, very close, and it's sort of all we can see, sort of quite primal, that fear, to just sometimes being able to zoom out. Alex in my group talked about it as kind of going a step up and a step up. I guess in some ways almost accessing our adult sort of persona, if you were thinking about it in transactional analysis terms. But I think just sometimes thinking about the visual that you put on the screen with the lady with the life ring, if she wasn't zoomed out, all she would see is water and feel very, very stressed. And actually when she starts to zoom out, she can see that she has a life ring. She can maybe see that there's a boat on the horizon that she can wave to. She might see that there's another swimmer in the water. She might realize that she actually has some basic swimming skills of her own. And that just being able to pull out and see the whole picture and find those tools and things to be able to offset just felt like an interesting area.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hattie. And what is coming up for me as you share this, and I also noticed some comments in the chat, is we can help our clients to change that perspective, to change that focus, like zoom out and see, like, as you say, resources. We can also really look into multiple perspectives as well. And in fact, one of the things I did put in the workbook, because there's just no time, is what are the different perspectives we could be taking when we're looking at that uncertainty and we want to look at it from different angles. What would it look like from the future? What would it look like from the past? What other resources are there? What could be the silver lining, even in the baddest of the outcomes, right? Like, what are some of those really different perspectives? What are those, as you say, like life brings available to us? Thank you, loving that. So many possibilities, but I guess one thing that I would really invite us all to do is to have a think about where might we be avoiding uncertainty and at the same time, like, not allowing for enough of that uncertainty in our clients' lives, almost like going into those certainties that might be an illusion. And I want to quote Jung today again. It feels like I don't know, his teaching is so apt for this for this topic. And one quote that really resonates with me on this. Let me just should I arrange my windows here? But if you grow, but you grow if you stand still in the greatest doubt. And therefore steadfastness in great doubt is a veritable flower of life. He who cannot bear doubt does not bear himself. Such a one is doubtful. He does not grow, and hence he does not live. Doubt is the sign of the strongest and the weakest. The strong have doubt, but doubt has the weak. There's something so powerful in that, for me, about we all have doubt. Doubt is part of life. Uncertainty is the only certainty there is, like, you might see in various quotes floating around. But there is something about being had by that doubt, back to what Hattie was saying about it being so close here to having doubt and embracing it as just a human experience that is just part of living, something we can't escape. I'm noticing that time is ticking, and I would almost like, my dream for this workshop would be to hear from each and every one of you and open a massive conversation, but I know we can't do that, so I'm going to continue and in a moment invite us to our last practice for today in breakout rooms in pairs, when you'll actually be coaching each other. So I'm hoping whoever stays is happy for that experience as well. I wanted to introduce a framework which, as I said, I've taken this from, because it's not mine, I'm going to share the source, which is this book, which is called The Upside of Uncertainty by Nathan Furr and Susanna Harmon Furr. It's not a coaching book, and but what I find really useful is this red cross for managing uncertainty. I find like it can really help us think about what are the different aspects of getting better at uncertainty. But I guess I wanted to ask all of you a question of, if you think about the fact that we have been living through such uncertain times, if we think about the pandemic, Brexit, all those things that happened in the world and continues to be about the state of our planet and everything else that is so uncertain. Do you think we're getting better at managing uncertainty or not? Maybe just a show of hands of who thinks we are learning and getting a bit better and more resilient through that. Yeah, see a few hands. Okay, but so many things still to learn, right? And so much more resilience yet to be had. And let's think about, well, what does this mean? So the way this cross works is, it looks like different areas of what we could be doing. So the first area here is prime on the left hand side, and this is about how can we be preparing ourselves for what's ahead, right? And how could we do that, right? Like, we could first of all have awareness. We could have awareness of our own patterns, of our journey, of our avoidance mechanisms, perhaps, and what is the cost of that avoidance in our life as well? What opportunities or chances or choices are we avoiding by looking to that certainty? But also we can be taking some practical preparation, like we talk about those uncertainty balancers. Like, what are the things in our life could balance some of that uncertainty out? You know, people sometimes talk about how Steve Jobs wore the same t-shirt every day because that was something that he just didn't have to think about. Well, what is an equivalent of that in our lives? What are some of those more stable forces? But also in that prime category, I think it's about thinking about our navigation system, like getting really clear on our values and what matters, to be guided by that in those moments of doubts, of when we are maybe thinking about that avoidance, but also flexing our muscles, right? Like, how could we let that uncertainty play out just a little bit longer, perhaps in some areas in our life when the stakes are maybe not that high, but we are learning, having this emotional playground for that. So that's in the prime. If we think about sustain, to me, that is really about nourishment and support and whatever can sustain us through the downsides of that uncertainty. And this will look so different to each and every one of our clients and all of yourselves as well, whether it's meditation, physical activity, nutrition, whether it's fostering connections with people, getting support through coaching, therapy, so many options. But this is about having some practices on that journey that can help us. If we think about that do category, this is to me a question of, well, how can we strike the right balance between staying connected with that uncertainty, where there's something there to be mined, where there's something that we have to do to bear that doubt, right? As Jung said. But when do we move into action? How do we move into action, even though we might not know what's ahead? We might not know what the right step is, but there are ways to maybe reframe that. And I often see that in my coaching, people wanting to understand what the whole picture looks like ahead of time. A metaphor I often use with my career coaching clients and any client going through transformation or change or transition of some sort is a metaphor of a journey on a ship. It's like when we embark on a new journey to an unknown destination, we can't see the entire path ahead of us. What we can only do is to navigate that ship to the point on the horizon. And then when we get to that point, then we can again go further and see what's there. What do we have to navigate? What currents, what obstacles, or what favorable winds might be actually helping us on the way? So how can we be dividing that big uncertainty into smaller steps that feel more manageable, maybe feel more resourced? And the last one on that cross, I left for last, but this is the one I'm hoping we can spend a bit of time on, is the good old friend of us, coaches, the reframe. Right? This is really about reframing those experiences. And I know, already in what you've been saying and writing in the chat, there are so many ways in which risk, uncertainty can be seen in a very different way from another perspective. So what I'd like to invite us to do in a moment is to go into a micro exercise or micro coaching session, an exercise for all of us. And I'm hoping that we can go into pairs or trios, I think, depending on numbers in the moment. So this is what this looks like in pairs. And I'm going to calculate the time in a moment. We might have maybe about 15 minutes for that, okay? So when you go into those pairs or trios, the first part is where one person asks the other, tell me where things feel uncertain, okay? And it's an exercise that draws from time to think a little bit, as in there are no other questions that you will be asking in that room. The only thing as the coach you ask is, tell me where things feel uncertain. And when you are the other person, you respond to whatever comes to mind, and you will have 3 minutes to share that, okay? 3 minutes for sharing. And when you finished, person one, you can ask the same question again. Tell me when things feel uncertain, okay? And then when you're done, 3 minutes is over, then you swap. And then the other person shares for 3 minutes. And the previous one just asks the question of, tell me where things feel uncertain. Now, when you're done with that bit, which should take 6 minutes, 3 minutes each, then we go to the second part, which is the reframe. Tell me where things feel full of possibility. Okay. And again, you will have 3 minutes to respond and just empty your cup of whatever comes up for you in that moment. Person B listens deeply, says thank you, but does not respond. Okay. And then again, you swap and repeat. So I'm noticing that some of you cannot join the breakout room. If that's the case, we'll see what happens, right? So if you don't join, I'll just pair people up as it's possible. So because I can't keep track of everyone who can't at this moment. So let us do that, and then we will sort it on the fly. So what I'm going to do is paste those instructions into the chat as well, so you have them. So let's stop sharing. Paste them in the chat. So hopefully when you go to your rooms, you will be able to see exactly what I just shared on the slide. And I will recreate those rooms. Now, when you're in a trio in that scenario, what I suggest you do is take turns. So for example, in the first question, rather than being person A and then person B, maybe everybody first shares on the first question. And then when you're halfway through, then everybody takes a turn to share on the second question, okay? Just split the time in half, okay? I see a few nods. Hopefully this is making sense as an exercise. All right, so when you come back, we're going to be almost finished, just a few parting thoughts at the end. So I'm opening those rooms up for 15 minutes. So you have 12 minutes for the exercise and then 3 minutes of buffer or a little bit of sharing. Not needed, okay? Kind of, right?
Yeah.
That's how I good to go about that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and things like self-care, for example, it could actually be practical things that take you more into the present, couldn't it? Rather than out inside your brain. Because when you're in uncertain times, you're really stuck in your brain going round in circles, potentially worrying about it. So activities that help you lose your, take you into a zone that's different from wherever you're thinking about the uncertainty.
Yeah, absolutely. Like going back to the thinking system, right? Which talked about flow and how can we be in flow. Well, everyone is back. Welcome. And I have, we have 4 minutes. I don't know how this happened, but this workshop has gone so fast for me. And I'm very jealous of all the conversations you had. But maybe if I could just ask you to tell me before I say goodbye to you, how did it feel to be doing that? Good. Thank you, Ross, for thumbs up. Good. Positive. I see a few things in the chat. Yeah. Positive. Liberating. Oh, beautiful. Really hear that. Connecting with that. Now, I wish this was, a day-long workshop, but I do need to wrap this up very quickly because you have 45 minutes for lunch, starting at 45, and then, of course, you will have your next sessions. A busy day ahead of you, and I'm really loving what you're saying in the chat. Wendy says really shifts energy, helpful, sets up a good solo walk to consider my possibilities. Wonderful, amazing, opening up, lighter, exciting. Oh, this gives me goosebumps. I wanted to throw in one last thing, which is one of my favorite personal reframes on uncertainty. That helps me in difficult times, which is, I feel like I'm sharing lots of quotes today. This one is from Rilke, and it's about loving the question. So this is from Letters to the Young Poet, and he says, be patient towards all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given to you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. And something that I think about a lot when it comes to uncertainty is how the quality of the questions I'm asking myself and I'm asking the clients are changing. How could we be moving on the journey of the questions rather than looking for that uncertainty, for that certainty, right? So I just want to thank you so much for being here, for exploring this topic. I hope you're taking away some new reflections, insights, and enjoy your continuous journey with uncertainty, embracing it, bearing the doubt, and living life fully, and helping your clients do the same. All right. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Have a fantastic break now, 45 minutes, and back at past to your next session.
Thanks, Marta.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Marta.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.